Hi friends, CT here, and today I want to talk to you about my last trip over the Solomon Islands and the 5 things that I enjoyed the most about my trip over there. The trip itself was completely impromptu. We ended up meeting up with a Christian missionary over there who has his own charity called Clean Water for Life. And the idea of the Clean Water for Life campaign is to provide water wells to the majority of the people in the Solomon Islands, as clean drinking water over there is probably one of the hardest things for people to find. So with that, here's my top 5 things that I enjoyed about the Solomon Islands while I was over there. The first was the natural beauty. The Solomons has everything from coral reefs right through to natural dense rainforests. And interestingly, in a place like the Solomons, while we were there at least, it ended up raining a significant amount, which sort of made us question why Clean Water for Life is a thing. However, it does make sense. The majority of the people end up getting their water out of the local rivers, which are highly polluted. While we were there, we ended up taking a few of the local jungle taxis, which are flatbed trucks which everyone piles into. I don't understand exactly who owns them, where you end up getting the taxi, but it seems like everyone just piles on and we end up going for a drive. And as there's no formed roads there, it takes absolutely forever, or around about an hour, to move about 15 kilometers, which actually allows you a lot of time to have a look around into the natural beauty and the actual tree tops themselves and the canopies. This ends up being quite beautiful and quite spectacular, and it's something that you don't really get to see a lot in your natural habitat of a city itself. Number 4, simple living. While we were in the Solomons, we were very lucky to be taken into the local community of Fahara, which is located on Melita, which is the westmost island of the Solomons. While there, the local chief, whose name is Chief Barak, ended up taking us in and making us one of his own clan, so to speak. It was quite interesting when we were there. We were able to look at how people live in their local community, and the living conditions over there are very simple. Most of the people are subsistence farmers, which means that they basically live off the land and they grow what food that they require. Anything that they don't have, they either trade, barter, or buy from a local market. And anything that they have which is surplus to their needs, they also put back either into the community itself, or they'll sell for a small amount of profit for themselves. It was actually quite enjoyable watching this simple kind of living, where it was you grow your own food, you participate in your local community, and realistically any of the sort of like issues that you might have had would have been solved by the chiefs or the council of chiefs. And anything which was outside of what their local chiefs wanted to handle, they would hand over to the police and that person would be looked after. I think this sort of like simple kind of living is something that I think we're kind of missing in the Western society, purely from the fact that everything is so complicated and everyone else's business is everyone else's business, especially when you're talking about social media. Within this simple living model, where you have a chief of a community and he's able to sort out what kind of the problems transpire, and you're literally either looking for food, doing some simple work, it's actually quite rewarding for your soul. Point number 3, appreciation of the things that you have. Going over to the Solomon Islands, one of the things that I quite enjoyed the most was just being able to sit back and appreciate the simple things that we have, that we take for granted in our everyday lives. Things like easy access to the internet, things like easy access to food, and foods which not only come from around my country, but also from around the world. Having the sheer choice of different kind of cuisines and enjoying different kind of cultures. Being able to being well educated, being able to go through university, going through high school, being able to go to different courses. Whereas within the Solomon Islands, although you have a simple living kind of lifestyle, education over there is quite limited. Access to clean water is very limited. Access to toilets, electricity, all of the simple sort of benefits that we take for granted day to day, those things make it quite hard to live in the Solomon Islands themselves. So from that particular point of view, it was actually quite nice to sit back and enjoy what things that I have and things that I take for granted. And that I take that for any place that I travel around the world that might be a third world country. The simple things that we take for granted in a Western world is things like security, things like not having to fight for food, things like being able to be provided standard stuff like sanitation, high levels of medical care, and being able to live for a very long time. The simple appreciation of the small things like water, sanitation, high levels of medical care, things like social benefits, being able to have education, those simple things which we take for granted in the Western society, I was able to take a much more greater appreciation, and I always do when I go over to a third world country. But it's really easy to get caught up in your day-to-day lives, of the hustle or bustle of what work happens to be, and all of these things which we consider first world problems. Being able to go to a third world country and really taking that step back and putting yourself into a position which you're not necessarily quite comfortable with makes you appreciate these things a little bit more. And I think from a basic level, you appreciate exactly some of the hardships that these people go through on a day-to-day life that we simply take for granted. Point to number 2, the friendliness of the people. I was actually quite overwhelmed while being in Fahara and some of the stories that we were covering with the videos that we were taking. Simple things like the sense of where everyone themselves would not judge you for who you are, they simply accept you on your face value, which was quite amazing. The stories also too in Fahara where they will take in anyone from anywhere around the world, regardless of religion, race, creed, gender, anything else. And if you have issues, they'll be able to help clothe and feed you themselves. And that overall friendliness themselves for the Solomon Island people is amazing. Listening to them while they were singing in church on a daily basis, some of the songs was absolutely amazing. And it really just sort of opens you up and really sort of touches your soul when you hear them sing, and just the sheer friendliness of them welcoming outsiders. The number one thing that I really enjoyed about the Solomon Islands, and I've sort of touched on this already, but is the sense of community. The fact that myself, coming from Australia, completely unknown to the community, we came in and they just accepted us with open wide arms. Also touching back on point number 2 as well, where being able to take people in. So one of the stories that we ended up getting over there was a gentleman that had his wife, his kids, 9 kids living in a house, and he'd been accused of witchcraft. And while they were in their house, in the middle of the night, some of the local tribes people decided to come along and burn down their house, which doesn't sound particularly friendly, but witchcraft is a massive problem within a lot of the Pacific Island communities. Interestingly though, he was able to escape, and he actually went back to the island, township of Fahara, where he was taken in. The local chief actually took him into his own place. And from the chief, they were able to negotiate with the other tribes people, and it was found that they were actually wrongly accused. However, he can never go back to his own community himself. But the fact that they were able to band together, and the fact that whenever anyone farms, they're farming for not only themselves, but also for their community as well. They organise community working groups, which is not unlike what it is in the Western society. However, these fundamental things are about either helping someone build their own house or doing some basic level farming for the community. All these kinds of things are amazing, and I think we've kind of lost that a little bit of sense of community sometimes within the Western society, purely from the fact that we're so busy with our lives. However, in the Solomons, as I said, we are now apparently a part of the Fahara tribe, and we've been welcomed with open arms to come back at any time, which I very much look forward to doing in the future. Anyhow guys, that's my top 5 tips from the things that I enjoyed at the Solomon Islands. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks.